Hi, everybody, and welcome to Low Market's live webinar, 8 Tech Tools You'll Need in 2021. Before we jump into the content, and there's heaps of it, and I pass you over to Jason and Sam, I just want to go through some quick housekeeping. So as you'll see, just down the bottom of your screen, if you have a question, there is a Q&A box. Please drop in any of your questions there, and we'll try to tackle as many of them as we possibly can towards the end of the webinar. Secondly, we are recording this session, so don't fear, we will forward this to you, the recording that is, to you tomorrow, so you'll be able to rewatch any of this, this content. So right now, I'll pass over to Loan Market Group's Executive Chairman, Sam White.
Hi, and good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, depending upon if you're in Western Australia. I hope, thanks very much. Thanks for making the time to join us. I know how busy all of you are, particularly at the moment, in the rush to Christmas and trying to help your customers as best you can navigate the landscape at the moment, which, as you know, is we're seeing a few delays pop up here and there, but and fundamentally, I know a lot of you are so busy with new customers and help that you're doing, and we're seeing that in the terms of the broker share rising across the country. So we're going to talk. A lot of you are putting your heads down and saying, "Okay, look, I just got to get through this next 2 months." Focusing on what I'm doing with my customer. Sometimes it's hard to stick your head up and look around to see, am I doing the right thing? What else is available? What are other brokers doing? And particularly as it comes down to tech. And this year is going to be remembered for a lot of things, obviously, 2020. Who would have thought when we were in March, in that fearful time, in that late March, early April, who would have thought we would have had the year that we had collectively? One thing that's going to stand out amongst everything else, and there's lots of things that everyone will associate with 2020. One thing is how important technology has become to brokers, not just as a tool to help their business, but a fundamental need, something that's been so critical to keep brokers in business. Not just in business as well, but really helping integrations with customers, helping that customer journey, and ensuring that your customers get the best service that you can possibly deliver. And who would have thought that so many of us would now be using technology the way we are now? So I think it's appropriate to probably just to think about in the year ahead, what are we going to need to do? What does the future look like? What are some of the things that we're seeing? And we're thrilled to be able to share this with you. There's a lot of content to go through, so I'm going to let Jason Fennell, who's our Chief Customer Experience Officer, really run through some of the things that we're seeing, some of the tools that we've seen, some of the things that are adding a lot of value to brokers, and we'll be doing that in the lead up, through the next hour. A couple of, obviously, some of the trends you'll be seeing next year. Bid will become business as usual, or there's so much work, so many of you put into bid. That's going to become business as usual. We're obviously going to start to see changes in responsible lending. That's going to start to change the shape. Broker share, no doubt, will continue the rise we've seen in the last few years. One of the things I think will happen more as well is just how brokers and lenders are going to be engaging digitally more and more in the future. And we've seen the start of that this year. No doubt we'll see more of that in the year ahead. And just to give you some perspective on that, and just in terms of why we're talking to you the way we are, if I can just go to the next slide, and just talk a bit about the investment that we've been making in tech. It's been something that we've been really significantly focused on over the last couple of years, and many of you would have seen the announcement last week when NAB decided to sell their 3 aggregation groups, Plan Australia, Choice, and Fast. One of the key reasons that we wanted to buy those groups, and particularly apart from the fact that obviously got great people and great brokers, is we believe in the broker network, in brokers. We believe in the future of this industry, and we believe that going forwards, we're going to need to be investing more. That technology is not just something you get to and tick the box and say, okay, that's done. It's very much an evolution for all of us in business in the future. We're going to need to get into a rhythm of keeping updating and keeping refreshing our views on technology. So anyway, without further ado, I want to introduce Jason Fennell, who's our Chief Customer Experience Officer. Jace, take us away and show us some of the things that you think we should be looking for in 2021.
Thanks, Sam, and welcome everyone. I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be a wild ride. We're going to cover a lot and run through sort of 8 themes that we've both invested in, and also share some of the thinking that we've got around where we think it's all going. So the first theme is around, digital first and fast. And what we mean by that is that essentially people are time poor and impatient, and when they're in discovery mode, you have their attention for just a moment. And if you don't really impress or delight them in that moment, then I think your conversion, your paths to sale are limited. So what I'll run through is, where we think we are today in terms of lead generation and distributed versus centralized lead generation, but also some thinking in the future. So just to start with where I think we're at in 2020, I'll run through this. So here's a typical website, and you can see that with Go Mortgages, they're really positioning, thinking of getting a new home, apply now. Now, the ability to act immediately, someone's been referred and been given this website and they go, yeah, I'll take a look, I think is super important. And I'll just run you through the kind of experience that we think is important. So I'll just run a video. It's going to go quite quickly, but you'll get a sense of it. So someone comes onto your site, says, I want to apply now, I want to get started. And I think it's that digital first, digital now is really a promise that you need to make to customers that you can help them the moment that they show any level of interest. Now, in this case, it's running through a customer experience for exploring what investment property might look like. What kind of property you're buying? Is it an investment? Is it a home? Is it refinance? Now, the ability not to just to grab some data off the person, but to really guide them through some of the facets of understanding what's required, what LMI is, what stamp duty is I think a great way to start building trust with a potential client. These kinds of experience are, I think, are relevant not just for people who are visiting your website, but anytime you send out a message, anytime a referrer is sharing content, you can begin to drive people through really foundational experiences that will build trust and then eventually, once they go through the process, become a lead inside of a CRM. So you can see here we're positioning that if you create your profile, you can then get access to a bunch of lenders, and we'll do some work to get pre-approval. And the process that you're seeing now really is about securing that client's profile in order that they can then begin the fact find process. Now, keep in mind, you haven't spoken to this person yet, and they're beginning the journey on their own. Now, at this point, whether they drop off or not is irrelevant, because you'll have already got their name, number, and or validated mobile number, and you can reach out to them regardless of how far they get. But let's say they get to the point where they've secured their profile, they're welcome to your brand, and then they're prompted to complete their profile. Now, essentially the promise is if you fill in your details, we'll test for pre-approval with X number of lenders, and then begin the process of asking them about their goals, what the situation is, are they working towards dates. Now, as this sort of video runs through, I think it's interesting to reflect on the fundamental transitions that BID have brought about, because I think, and this may be unfair, but I think in the past, the level of service brought about by not unsuitable meant that, largely brokers were preparing an application for a loan that will do the job. And that was a lot of the value that you delivered, that you could grab the data, you could help them shape the application and get it into the lender. I think BID fundamentally changes the service proposition so that capturing application data and filling out an application is probably a low value activity now. The real value is in you assessing and making recommendations that are in that customer's best interest. So for the lower value activities, things like gathering data, putting it into my CRM, into a CRM, sorry, we really need to find faster ways of doing it, more efficient ways of doing it, and that allow you to really shine in the bit where you're adding a lot of value. Now, I know brokers would argue they've always done that, but I think it's, as we sort of watch this video going through, you start thinking, well, yes, of course it's the client who should be entering this data into the system, not me. Shouldn't be on paper, shouldn't be copying it from place to place. Now, maybe it's not so obvious, but behind the scenes, I think more and more tool sets like this are going to be completely integrated into the CRMs or the operating systems that brokers use, so that this isn't filling out some spreadsheet where there's a lot of data migration required. This is crafting not only the data within the application, but setting up things like securities and proposed lending. So it'll run through this. You get the impression, really detailed questions that allow them to do it. Now, we've been using this for a long time, and I think if you're not using tools like this, you'll be surprised by the level of engagement that you get by consumers. When we first launched a few years ago, there was no one's going to do this, and what we're getting is just delight around how easy it is for people to do this. And if you compare this process, it is a long process, to doing it on paper, it's no harder, and there's a lot of efficiency gains out of it. The other thing to kind of reflect on while watching this is, the future of capturing expenses, which is a very painful activity. I'll be talking a little bit in this presentation around where I think that's heading. And I think in future, the opinions of both the client and the broker on how much someone spends will become less and less relevant. So while this is showcasing how a customer might fill out their expenses, I think, and thankfully, I think this will become a thing of the past and future. So runs through that. Don't worry, the whole presentation.
On that too, Jace, one of the things on this is that I know when we first started talking, people were concerned, is this going to replace brokers? Did we see technology replacing brokers? And everything we've seen going forward is that technology won't replace brokers, but brokers using good technology will make will be able to assist those type of customers who want it. And some customers have said, look, I don't want to go and fill this sort of level of detail, and some have. But I think for a broker to be able to know that if their client wants it, they've got the tools. I think that's what's important going forwards, is that you don't want to be outgunned on tech. You want to be able to choose the right engagement for the customer that's in front of you. Yeah.
So, at the end of the process, you're thanked, you're introduced to a broker. The promise is that they'll review your profile and get fast pre-approval, and then move into a bit of an update on what's happening. So the profile is being sent for review. Xavier will do some research and consider some options. Home loans made simple. And then they're given an overall view of the kinds of things that are going to happen again, some tools that they can play with around comparing home loans or viewing borrowing capacity. So considering Xavier has not spoken to this person, it's a pretty well shaped moment, I would suggest. So yeah, that's beginning with that sort of digital first and fast theme. Now, it's not just about building these sorts of things on your own. I think this is a view of our CRM that sort of looks into how you can configure My Lead Generator, not just for your website, but it becomes a matter of then distributing that particular experience across all your channels, across Google, across LinkedIn, across Facebook, across any marketing sort of campaigns that you're running. And more and more this stuff needs to be 100% integrated in order for it to work, because you can see it's not just about asking some questions, it's about getting that into the CRM. So that's the first theme. We'll jump to the second one. And the second one is around online reviews fueling more and more business and growth. The truth is customers are really navigating a very saturated landscape, meaning that there's a lot of information out there, a lot of websites, a lot of brokers, and that, again, converting word of mouth referrals at the moment that they punch something into Google is very important, and standing out from the crowd is vital. So in terms of what's happening today, I think that the trend is that brokers are going to be more and more owning their own marketing channels, and one of the key aspects of that is including your client feedback engine. So Google reviews is one aspect of it, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So here you can see it's the kind of thing that happens if someone had referred, hey, you should look at Sarah Thompson, she's a great broker. The ability to really drive engagement at that point, and you can see here how hard Sarah and her team have worked to configure exactly what's going on in her reviews, and position herself as a very well trusted brand is that first step in building trust. Very similar for Go Mortgages, another example of them really using the power of customer feedback. So, you can see that Sarah Thompson in particular is driving a phenomenal 60% of her business. She's an amazing business out of Google reviews. Really, I think there's a strong trend there about owning your own channels, and in particular, owning your feedback mechanisms and the ability for your clients to get clients. More and more, I would suggest that in 2021, there'll be more of that in terms of the integration of those tools. So the next theme is around digital onboarding. So what I mean by digital onboarding is it's the ability to set a client relationship up for success in order to drive towards that transaction outcome. It's essentially the beginnings of the process that really, you know, builds trust or degrades trust. So yeah, it's anyone who's expressed an interest in working with you. This initial moment of, okay, how we're going to work together matters. And I think a brilliant onboarding experience is something that we've invested a lot in, and I think all brokers should invest a lot in. So there's also another side to it, which is the massive efficiency gains you can get if onboarding is done well. And it really delivers on one of the promises that we think, you know, is important, which is saving time. So I'll run through some of the stuff that we think is like the state of play today, and then go into some thinking around where we think digital onboarding might go. But I'll start with just looking at how we approach onboarding. So here we are in my CRM. If I want to create a new contact, I can select a client, and I'll just quickly write. And get to the point where sorry. Okay, so onboarding is about the process going from I'm just entering someone into my CRM to them engaging with you. So I'm just going to run through the beginnings of that process of creating a contact and saving that contact, and then moving through to the point where you can start communicating with that person. So contact's been created, and the first real question is, do you want to create a new deal for this person? Do you want to create basically a file or an opportunity to rally around? So I'm going to say yes, call it first home, select the type, which is residential. It's in contacting phase, and it's for the first home. So now that I've got the client created and then a specific deal to house all the information related to this transaction, the next thing is to begin the onboarding process. So to send a hello pack. Now, a hello pack for us is exactly how you go about that. So it's an orchestrated set of things that includes a message to that client, introducing yourself and what's going to happen again, and then the ability to attach a marketing brochure, attach a credit guide, invite them to book in a meeting using your calendar, and if you've got some extra attachments, attach that. It's not just about positioning you and yourself and your marketing, but about beginning the process of collecting information. So you can configure what you want to be collected in the fact find and select those things, which you saw in the previous video, what that might look like. So I could do lots, I could do a little bit. There is also the secondary process vital around beginning to get them to understand what kind of documents you're going to need to collect in order to get the applications going. And so in this, you can either choose to do document collection at that initial onboarding or choose not to. And if you choose to, you can do it via file invite or via the fact find, but really beginning to drive efficiencies into templates that define what a baseline set of templates is, some self-employed, some pay-as-you-go templates, in order to ensure that they understand what's required and exactly what it looks like. So you can see review and send, you get to review the pack and send. So that's the beginnings of the hello moment for us, and the beginnings of what we're doing in terms of driving efficiency and consistency in onboarding. What I might do now is talk about the fact that in parallel there is file invite requests that can go out, and very clearly again just describing to the client what do I need to do, how do I grab it, that kind of stuff. So really setting up expectations and making it clear how you're going to operate together. In future, so that's sort of, I think, the current state of affairs. I think in future, next year is going to be largely around customizing some of these things so that they're more specific to different client needs. So you can see here that you can customize and save templates depending on, are they first home buyers, investors, refinancers, and different messages, different marketing packs, different kinds of fact finds, different kinds of document requests, and the ability to generate new templates in order to do that. Again, you know, why write that email for the 700th time? You can drive efficiencies and ensure that, you know, you're consistent and yeah. The next area in terms of onboarding that I think is going to be a real focus for next year for everyone is growth at scale. So what growth at scale probably means is that while there's a level of automation you can do around onboarding generic clients, there is probably a similar level of efficiency and customer experience sort of benefits to be gained by automating your own internal workflows. So the kinds of things that you might do, sorry, I need to do this in order to run through it, is, you know, you might target a workflow for a particular thing, like whenever a deal hits a status of new lead or new application and the deal type is residential, then I want to ensure that every time there's some tasks that are assigned to an advisor, or I will select an activity template that gets attached to this particular deal, or I might add a checklist. So this stuff isn't revolutionary. There are lots of systems that do it, but I think the most important thing will be the integration of this to the CRM and also to your ability to market and onboard is going to become vital. So those three things coming together will be incredibly powerful, because the onboarding sort of process I showed before, which is I think the state of today, is largely a client experience. This is a back office business process experience. So yeah, that's digital onboarding as a theme. So the next theme that we're going to talk a little bit about is one of my favorites, actually, compliance by design. So I think it's fair to say that most people, including me, saw compliance as a brake on growth, as a constraint, as something that got in the way. And I have to say I am completely transformed in understanding that the legislation that we're all bound by has the best intentions, and it's largely around delivering an exceptional customer experience. And the best interest duty is the biggest gift I think we will ever get around differentiating our offering against single channel providers, like the banks and lenders, and really giving us a rallying call around what a standard of service should be. Again, the fundamental difference between not unsuitable and best is just, it's worlds apart. So I think it's a win-win, really. So in terms of, you know, where we're at today and where we're going in the future. So today, I think that there are a number of things that are occurring in technology that simplify compliance, that build compliance into the process, rather than it being a checklist that you do later or a checklist that's slowing you down. So I'll also run through some of the examples around privacy and credit guides and some of the things we're doing, and then some of the thoughts we're having around, you know, where can this compliance by design go? What would deeper levels of automation in compliance actually look like? So first of all, one of the things about compliance by design is, for example, just having a place that will capture everything that both you and the compliance teams need to assess a file. So for us, it's something like the deal, where you've got a combination of everything: the summary, notes, tasks, communications, documents, and the application itself, where you can do handover notes, and then importantly, start to model the solution. So that's one thing that, you know, really you just go, well, this is just, you know, bread and butter, but it's really been designed in order to make sure that compliance is built into every part of this. Another area that is it's a high risk activity, this one. There are so many things I'm going to run through. So what I want to run through now is anyway, I'll just keep going. So in terms of the compliance by design, one of the things that I think is important is as legislation gets more complex and makes demands on us, that we automate it. A good example is the fact that I think everyone needs to be dynamically generating their credit guides at the moment. Now, the reason why is because this is our Hello Pack marketing bit of material. It runs you through who we are, what we do, how we're going to work together. So a lot of nice marketing stuff. But at the end, it sort of automatically attaches a credit guide, delivers this to the customer, and then dynamically, because we're obliged to do it, talks about the panel, talks about the panel splits for the aggregator, talks about the broker's actual panel splits based on the last year. It's a test account, so it's not showing my splits, and also who I am accredited with. So the number of accreditations I have, and specifically who I have accredited. Very hard thing to keep up to date manually, very hard thing to, and boring to worry about. So it's a small example of compliance by design, baking compliance into the steps so that you don't need to worry about it. Your obligations are sort of satisfied. Another example of compliance by design is something we call the goal setter. So, that we're bound by bid to look into goals and objectives. You want a consistent way of really driving that message. So here's an example of the kind of things that I think is going to be more common, which is essentially being able to have guided conversations with your clients around their goals and objectives. So this is what we call the goal setter. It has a series of steps that you can go through with a client on screen, either in the office or at home. And it lets you run through what are they looking to do, dates, etc. But then more importantly, what are a conversation around preferences. Who do you bank with today? Are you happy with your bank? Why are you happy or unhappy? In order to understand what they're looking at. Are there lenders you're interested in? Which ones? Why? Why are those important to you? And then, have you got any preferences? Now, most people don't understand what fixed variable or variable split might mean. This is that education moment where you can talk about the options, introduce them, explain the impact of split rates, capture why they're done. And importantly, all of this is automatically checking off those compliance obligations that you have, where you have introduced different repayments options, you have talked about them with the client, you have identified why they're important to them. So really key in terms of the new obligations. We've already talked a bit about the fact find, but being able to review that fact find. And in future, I think more and more will be built into these sort of guided digital face-to-face experiences, things like discussing the loan amount that they're considering borrowing, the cost of LMI or other things. It could be talking about max borrow. So it could be in future about sitting down with them and really doing it on the fly, talking about their income, talking about their credit cards, showing them what the difference between the lender's borrowing capacity is and the impact that that might have on them. More and more, I think that the ability to talk about future goals and long-term goals will become a focus because of this obligation around understanding what they want to do and what best interest might look like. So a place to capture those and let those flow through. And even potentially talk about the team that you bring to the table, organising insurance, organising moving, organising financial advice, and really capturing, if they don't want to speak to a financial advisor and they consider it, them acknowledging that they understand the risks of not having loan protection in place and moving on so that you're covered and they're acknowledging it. So in terms of compliance by design, these are some of the things that we're doing, not just to have a long questionnaire process, but to ensure at every point you're capturing what you need to make great recommendations. And what we mean by great recommendations is that when it comes to the point of saying to the client, here, I've done my research, we've talked about your goals, we've captured all your information using the fact find. and you get to basically shine and say, here is my recommendation for you, packaged in not a compliance document, but a customer facing document that really goes through a message from you, positioning what you've done, what this document is, and then reiterating some of the goals that they've identified around what they're looking to do, and then really quickly getting to the point where you can make a very strong, clear, well-documented recommendation, a singular recommendation that you believe is in your client's best interests, and that that you have a detailed rationale for exactly why you think that this is the right product, based on a series of facets like interest rate, product features, turnaround times, lender preferences. So I think it's exciting that compliance has really ended up I think, delivering a better outcome for customers and driven the way we think about it. So I'm not going to labour too long on the game plan. It is, I think, the future of compliance documents. That's a bold statement, but where, it's not about just ticking off your requirements. It's about brilliantly positioning the work that you've done for your client in terms of defining a solution. So to celebrate how we've calculated how much you need to borrow, to celebrate and really make it clear what securities we're using, what that means to you, and really to dive very deeply into some of the options we considered and the one that we think is in your best interests, and most often the cheapest of the options that we think are appropriate. So that's a bit of a state of where we're at today in terms of compliance driving better outcomes. I think in future, next year, the kinds of tools that you're going to need are largely around driving efficiency into your business in delivering this kind of experience. So some of the things that I think will help with that are things like dynamic application health checks. So not waiting for auditing, not wondering if you're doing the right thing, but being scored based on a series of facets within the CRM to give you real confidence around the fact that you understand what best practice is, you're being measured on best practice, you're being scored, and you know that the status of this application is good before it even gets lodged. And a reminder of, hey, if you really want to get to best practice, you probably need a few more notes around this document. So moving away from training as a separate activity to training being in the application, I think that's going to be a real theme for 2020. The other area that I think will be a real theme is just making it easier to create the detailed recommendations and notes that you need to do. All the information's there, it's all in your head, it's there, but just simple things like prompts around when you're writing a summary, understanding, well, what did the client say? What did they want? What were their goals and objectives? What did I actually pick? ING, oh yeah, there were 2 splits, here's the rate. So not tick and flick, but a cheat sheet of, if you want to write a great summary, here's some of the things you should hit. In terms of rates, when you're writing, commentary around how rates have driven this particular decision, being able to say, yep, the selected product is this, here's the rates, here's some of the compared products, and client preferences, features, did they want any? You get the idea. So it's not just about asking you or your staff to write a great summary, it's about helping them write a great summary based on the information that's there. And this is a bit of a weird slide, but I'll chuck it in anyway. I think compliance by design gets to the point where you really are beginning to look very deeply into business process optimization. I think that's going to be another big theme of next year, that if you want to, scale, if you want to grow at scale, that you need to get very clear around what your process is, how to standardize it, what the steps in your process are, and what technology is going to be there to support it. So this is an example of the kind of thing I think every office should have a grip on, which is what are the steps in your client experience, what are the key moments, and how do you move from client discovery into capturing objectives, things like that. Because if you know what it is, you can optimize it. So that is compliance by design, a big topic. And apologies, I'm moving so fast, but got a few more to go and I'll keep going. So the next theme, I think, is around more sophisticated research capabilities. Again, BID makes demands on us, forces us to lift our game. And I think to to support confidence around best, we're going to need more sophisticated research tools and recommendation tools. I think that's going to be a big theme for 2021. If you look at what's available today, look, there are, and I think it's very common to be able to run serviceability, be able to run funding, be able to run product comparison, be able to save those sort of product comparisons and you know, view them, prepare them, things like this. The only issue with that is that these are all separate facets that are leading to the same point, because if you don't have the right combination of policy, product, LMI, and serviceability, max borrow, it's very hard to know you're really zeroing in on the best. So while the tools for doing research, comparing are getting better, I think. For example, if you want to model the rate reductions or in comparisons, or model fee reductions in comparisons, it's getting easier. There's complex things you can do around well, lots of things in this space. I think the real step forward will go beyond just display, which is where we are today, around being able to clearly present the results of your research. So here's an example of the 5 options, considering the discounts, considering how much you're saving on, the PDF's gone weird, how much you're saving due to the waivers on fees. That's just the beginning. I think the next step, and this is very hard to explain or see, is bringing together those things into a very powerful search engine. So if you look on the left, I think in future what we'll be looking at is a way of not just defining, hey, here's the loan, here's the structure, here's the security, here's the applicants and their income and their expenses, and pulling those together in a way that lets you go from Adelaide, there's a range of maximum borrow amounts, a range of rates, the LVR and LMI for that particular lender come to here, so that essentially through a search interface like this, you can with confidence, at least from a price point of view, say this product from Virgin Money is, from a pricing and availability point of view and serviceability point of view and LMI point of view, is the best product that I can find for you. Now that's not the only facet. Affordability is not the only facet or cost, but it is a strong one that you want to be super confident on. So yeah, there's a big theme around more sophisticated research capabilities, and I think in future, more and more there will be. They will evolve. Like, you know, I think for it's quite difficult to sort of really accommodate cashback offers into your comparison, and with a, you know, and things like, you know, is it over 5 years, 10 years or 30 years that we're going to be talking? It's this sort of super calculator area is where technology, I think, has a real role to play and can create, you know, better outcomes for brokers and customers. So I've touched a little bit on it already, but the 6th theme is around best customer recommendations, and it really is that delivery of what I've introduced as the game plan, and it is, I think, a moment that in future we're really going to celebrate, which is our service delivery and our ability to kind of, you know, create value is in this moment. So I think that more and more there's going to be more investment in delivering these kinds of reports, but in future I think the reports are going to get more and more targeted. So what I mean by that is that while today you can generate a game plan that it can sort of position your work and position what you do, it's a fairly generic document in terms of you know, it's targeting to different user types. I think in future there will be specific versions of these for, here's a pre-approval game plan, here's what getting pre-approval actually means, here's the maximum that you can bid on, you know, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff that you know too well. And then in future, I think it'll evolve away from just this recommendation moment to really playing a role in recommending how to approach the entire process. So, you know, how to find a property, how to get pre-approval, ways of you know, positioning yourself and your messaging inside that experience, and and also ways of introducing referrals and other things at the right moment. So I think there'll be a lot of investment in that in the year to come. So second last one is around automated client communications. And the real thing about automated client communications is that what we know is that growing volume at scale requires automation. But we also know that it's possible for messages to feel personal without you getting directly involved. And that's the sweet spot that I think there'll be a lot of investment in next year, and there has been already this year. So, you know, more and more, again, these sort of things need to be integrated into the tool. And then in a similar vein, it's not just the beginning, but the actual automation and customization of those communications that will be a real strong theme, something you're going to need in 2021. So if you have a look, I mean, a lot of CRMs allow you to do customer care and follow through, you know, segments of people who are coming up to interest only expiry or fixed rate expiry. I think the next level in terms of that, in terms of where we're at today, is in terms of being able to automate communications on the back of that. So you can see here inside of marketing automation, you can update that so that you always include an annual check-in or not. You always include post-settlement or not, happy birthday, which is often the controversial one, but different kinds of expiry notifications. So that's the first level of automation. I think that's where, if you're not there today, you should be. I think the next level is largely around taking these sort of generic messages. So here's some examples of, you know, fixed rate expiry, which is just, it's an important moment, but it's not a detailed moment. A reminder to you, a reminder to your client. I mean, these are super important. If you're not doing them at scale, you should be. But the next level is really around applying automation to the whole thing. So you can see, and this is where I think a lot of investment is going to be next year. And it's not just to be clear, investment in technology. It's investment in the relationship between technology, business process optimization, and yeah, it's those two things. Like this technology does nothing unless there is a people and a process behind it. So this on its own won't save you, but I think the combination of you know, lean kind of Six Sigma thinking and technical process automation will get you there. So, you know, the ability to template all of your messages, your SMSs, your emails, template your checklists, template activity groups, and then drive them into workflows is super key. And I think from a comms point of view, it's most likely that the moment that will really change things is when it's very easy to say, in this particular workflow, I want to include this email and write that email, and then I want to include this SMS and write that SMS. Again, not revolutionary in terms of do other systems do it. There are a lot of systems that do it. I think the revolution next year will be the integration of these into not just the operating systems that brokers are working on, but into the actual business processes. So pretty exciting times actually when it comes to that theme, which is around automated client communications. The last one, what am I doing for time? I'm getting there. All right. Last one is open banking in the digital economy. Now, why is this important? Look, it's not here yet, but I'm confident that the ability for you to collect and analyze banking data is a reality. I'm not confident. It's just the truth. Being fluent in today's solutions is a must. You've got to be there this year, because if you're not there this year, it's going to be hard to pick up where it's going next year. The biggest hurdle for brokers is gaining confidence around positioning these kinds of tools with clients. And the brokers that we've seen that succeed with these and drive efficiencies are the ones who can explain very clearly what it does, why you can trust it, how it's going to help, and how it's going to save you time. And that, you know, you're going to need to learn to leverage not just, you know, the clients sort of, it's easier for your clients, but to actually leverage the reports that come off the back of these. What I mean by that is is here's an example of the kind of reports that today's solutions will give. So these are multi-lender, multi-account solutions. So we have Ilion integrated into a system, but everyone should be using these and getting really fluent with them. The ability to understand balances, to confirm wages, see the detail on wages. Not saying we built this or that it's, what I'm saying is that as a trend, leveraging this technology today is going to put you in a better position when open banking comes along and gives us even more of this. So that's the on the report side. On the positioning of these things, I think more and more we will see the integration of these kinds of tools into both the fact find and broker experience. So the ability to guide a client towards guide a client towards automatically connecting their banks and collecting things. So and explaining, hey, here's how you do it. Here's what's going to do. It's going to grab statements. It's going to be really easy. We'll just connect using normal bank login. Now, this can be done with the clients in your office, or you can pre-position it on a phone call. But getting them to trust that process, got way too many tabs going, is key. So anyway, yeah. There was one other thing that I want to run through, but yeah. So when you essentially from any point you send a fact find, you include document collection and bank statements collection in that particular request and position it. So I've flown through that. It's been a lightning sort of presentation. I might just come back to the beginning, which is here, and just sort of give you a bit of a summary. And apologies that I went so fast. It's just I had so much great content and I really want to cover it. So what have we learned today? I think that essentially the trend is, and those eight different tools that you're going to need next year are largely around enhancing the customer experience. There are some efficiency gains in all of it, but I think a better customer experience is what's at the heart of all of it. And I think that being fluent with these tools will give you more relevance and give you access to more customers. And in fact, somewhere in the 900 slides that I had in here, we talked a little bit about the efficiency gains that we're starting to see, almost double the industry average on the back of a lot of investment we've done this year in process automation. So yeah, compliance by design will save brokers time and keep them safe. Both of those are vital, particularly when that's just the baseline of what you need to do. And the cream is amazing recommendations and amazing service. So yeah, you need to be ready for these customer-led tech innovations. I think what's clear is that continuing investment in technology will drive continuous change, has this year, will next year, and really excited about what that means for everyone in the industry, really.
There was something, Jason, excuse me, there's something when you're talking through that set presentation, and you can take a breath now and sort of after that marathon. And you mentioned about tech, and technology itself is not the enabler. It's combining that with business process, engineering, which is basically just breaking up the process into little steps and saying, is that step as efficient as it can be? Do I need to have that step before that step? And I think so many brokers have redesigned their process this year, haven't they? And sort of said, okay, I need to find more efficiency. I'm so busy. I've got to do all this stuff now that I didn't have to do before, or that's now all digital. It's not paper, so I've got to redesign what I was doing before. So I think that's it's a good comment that technology doesn't just exist by itself. It needs to be, how do you look at a way to help bring it into your business and design the process, or design the technology around your process, or your process around the technology, probably a little bit of both, to get some really good outcomes. And I think that's one thing for next year, that readers, how to really take steps out of this, save time, is going to need to be spending less time doing stuff and more time having very efficient systems. And so as you grow your business, as you grow your teams, potentially, you get some real economies coming into your business.
Yeah, it feels like at the moment, the pendulum's right over the side of, I just cannot even get through the opportunities that I've got. I'm really looking forward to clearing that. It's swinging back to, I want more volume, I want more leads, I can drive more through this particular business because I have so much efficiency set up in it, and also take advantage of the referral opportunities that come out of a great customer experience. So
well, there's always two challenges, isn't it, for every business owner? So either you're talking about capacity in your business and how much you can do, and you're talking about, you know, filling up the funnel and finding more customers. And at the moment, I think most brokers are saying, I've got a lot of customers and I've been looking after them. They've got referrals. I've got lots of business. My capacity is what's really straining and creaking and probably causing me not to like things very much at the moment, because you know, a lot of brokers say, I didn't start this business to work 60 hours a week, and I need to find a better solution. I need to find a way that can give me to have a life as well as looking after these customers. And you know, that's where a lot of these changes are going to happen to help save time. Because that's probably the biggest issue with brokers I see right now.
Yeah. And Stacey, I know you were considering throwing some questions if we had time towards the end.
Yeah, we do, Jason, Sam, thanks so much. A few questions have come in, so we'll just see how many we can get through in the next 9 or so minutes. Peter has asked, when will you have an open API so those of us that prefer to use our own software can integrate with MyCRM?
Look, that's a very specific question to people who use our platform today. But again, in terms of a trend next year, I think open platform, all great mature platforms are open platforms, meaning that whether you're using the interface of the platform itself or you're using APIs and third parties, you can do the same thing. So in terms of the evolution of all platforms, I would suggest, not just ours, open APIs are a requirement, and it's definitely another focus for next year. I just didn't include it here because I think it's not a trend that most brokers can pursue on their own. It's really a consideration for platform owners like myself and others to continue to evolve. But there will be always this tension between the platform itself providing the functionality and then the platform being confident and open enough to allow innovation on the edges. But we're definitely on that path, and you know, looking forward to delivering on some of that stuff next year.
Thanks. And then another one, any technology tips or thoughts on winning new clients? With Lendy spending millions on Google lead generation, how do brokers compete online without deep pockets?
Yeah, so hopefully I covered that in that earlier, but maybe I want to dive a bit deeper. So there was a time when we were looking at centralized lead generation, which is, you know, the kind of Lendy model where we will do brand advertising, we will create a digital experience, we will generate leads and then allocate them based on performance or how much you're willing to pay us. We've moved away from that model, and the model we are pursuing, which I think is interesting in the light of, you know, changes next year, is around what we're calling distributed lead generation. So that is giving Lendy-like tools to any brand, and allowing that brand to figure out how to market to its particular niche in its particular region. So, you know, the Sarah example was, she was getting a lot out of Google reviews and driving sort of leads through that channel. Some people do a lot of Facebook work, some people do Google Ads work. I understand that not everyone is a digital marketer, and maybe there's times when it's appropriate that some level of centralized lead generation exists. But we are, I think, getting a lot, and I think brokers are enjoying the flexibility of saying, it's my channel. If I want to include, you know, my experience with, you know, an EDM that goes out through my referral partners, I can. I'm in control of the cost, and I'm not paying a cost per lead.
I think that's right, definitely on social, and the comment, you look at how this industry has grown. It has grown through you looking after customers and those customers saying, you know, my broker looked after me and you should speak to him or her. And that's how this has grown. And I think very much that's still a big part of this industry. And it's going to be, how well are we looking after customers? If we're looking after customers well, and you have, because broker share's growing, that's how you're going to continue to build your momentum. And it's a slower build. And really, it's what we're doing with Google reviews is really putting that offline referral, you know, barbecue talk into digital. I think making sure that if we can keep that focus, and you can let your customers, a lot of brokers don't ask for referrals, and they sort of assume, like, customers, I don't feel comfortable asking but we see when brokers actually decide to ask when they've done a good job for their customer, which the vast majority do, the customers actually want to help and they do give leads. So I think I don't think we need to say it's all going to be digital. There'll be some digital, and you need to have the ability to do that. But don't forget that the biggest advocate for you is your customer, and engage them in helping them get in front of more people. Was my advice to that.
Thanks, Sam. Next question. Robert has asked, the illustrations, so that's the ones in the Low Market Way slides, show brokers in front of a computer or on the phone. Where is the face-to-face activity between the broker and the client?
They're in, I'm glad you're watching, they're in the meeting area of the Low Market Way. We're not suggesting that face-to-face meetings are dead. In fact, we're very clear that we are not prescriptive around your engagement channel. So whether you choose to do it on the phone, via a video link, in person at your office, in person at someone's home, we're agnostic to that in the Low Market Way or in terms of business process. What we are clear about though is the particular steps that you need to cover during that engagement. And I mean, to be honest, it's an evolving thing, but I think it's a very healthy exercise to, if you haven't done it this year, get onto it next year, is to map out your end-to-end process. If you need help, there are people who are very good at it, and look at, you know, where you can delight more and where you can save time. Really, I think they're the main objectives of business process optimization.
Great. Thanks, Jace. Another question, will you have separate client needs analysis or CNAs for PAYG and self-employed?
Yeah, so I mean, I think already today with some of the tools with integrated like File Invite, you can have separate sort of templates for document collection. Like I said, the theme for next year is not just delivering on great onboarding, it's delivering on segmented onboarding. So exactly what you're talking about, which is a kind of a templatized approach to onboarding that recognizes the different needs of construction or refinance or whatever else. Absolutely, that's you know, we've invested a lot in that this year, and it's definitely going to be a theme for next year, which is ensuring that when we communicate with someone on board, deliver recommendations, even ask for a fact find, it's very specific to their particular needs and the sophistication of their knowledge. So yeah, we're really excited about that sort of part of it.
Great, and probably one last question before Sam, I'll get you to close off the webinar. Rod has asked, is there scope to discuss standardising monthly expense categories with banks in general, and is it possible to upload an Excel file with data, living expenses, for example?
I love these questions. I would love to see standardization across the industry in every way, because that's what technology needs to really pump. We've spent a lot of time sort of improving the mapping that we have to AOL and some apologies there in the future. So, you know, to be honest, it's going to be a constantly moving feast of banks change, standardization change, Lexi changes, we change. But I think, you know, maybe it's foolhardy to hope that open banking delivers that standardization. It's another great hope. But
I got a slightly view on that, Jace. I mean, I think, and you know, we had a lot of discussions, and the problem is the more standardized, the more vanilla this all becomes, the less room there is for people to really give quality advice. And I think, yeah, that's one thing we just got to be careful of in talking about this, is the value you add to your customers by finding, you know, niches for different lenders who have different appetites. And I think standardization is good for efficiency, but it can also lead to it can reduce choice. And I think having choice has always been a key thing for brokers. So getting a balance to that is I think is important going forwards. And I hope we never become too vanilla in our approaches. I don't think it's going to be. It might suit 80% of the Australians, but the edges might find it harder. I think we've run out of time, haven't we, Jace? Mate, that's been awesome. Thank you for running us through that. It's been excellent. You've got up there our LinkedIn profiles and emails if you'd like to jump in touch. And I think Stace, back to you to close it out.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sam. And as we said at the start of the webinar, we have recorded this session and we'll be emailing it through to yourself tomorrow. Of course, if you have colleagues or anyone else that you'd like to share, please do forward on the email and the video recording. And of course, reach out to us if you have any questions. So thanks.